The last man standing. The silence was deafening. Marcus Chen's eyes fluttered open to darkness broken only by the red pulse of emergency lighting. His head throbbed with each heartbeat, and the metallic taste of blood filled his mouth. Slowly, fragments of memory returned like pieces of a shattered mirror falling into place. The attack had come without warning. Zephyrian warships had emerged from hyperspace during the night shift, their crystalline hulls gleaming with deadly intent. Research Station Aurora 7 had been humanity's most advanced outpost, a testament to human scientific achievement, positioned at the edge of contested space. Now it was nothing more than a tomb. Marcus struggled to his feet, his legs shaky from whatever had knocked him unconscious. The communications bay where he had been working was in ruins. Sparking cables hung from the ceiling like electronic vines, and debris covered every surface. Through the shattered viewport, he could see the vast emptiness of space where human evacuation ships should have been. They had left him behind. The realization hit harder than any physical blow. During the chaos of the evacuation, while alien ships rained plasma fire down on the station, someone had made the cold calculation that communications specialist Marcus Chen was expendable. Perhaps they thought he was already dead. Perhaps they simply ran out of time. Either way, he was alone on a crippled station with limited life support and no way to call for help. Marcus limped through the corridors, his footsteps echoing in the hollow chambers. The station felt like a ghost ship, filled with the remnants of lives interrupted. Coffee cups sat half-empty on desks, personal photos were scattered on floors, and clothes hung abandoned in lockers. 347 people had called Aurora 7 home. Now there was only one. The Central Command Center was in better condition than the communications bay. Emergency power kept basic systems running, though most of the advanced equipment was offline. Marcus accessed the main terminal with his authorization codes, grateful that his clearance hadn't been revoked in the evacuation chaos. The station's automated log painted a grim picture. The Zephyrian attack had lasted only 43 minutes, but it had been devastating. The aliens had targeted the station's weapons and communication arrays first, then focused on the docking bays to prevent escape. 17 evacuation ships had managed to flee, but not before taking significant casualties. Marcus pulled up the external sensor array, praying it was still functional. The display flickered to life, showing the local space around the station. His blood ran cold. 3 Zephyrian scout vessels were approaching from the direction of their main fleet, their distinctive energy signatures burning bright against the star field. They were coming to claim their prize. The Zephyrians were unlike any species humanity had encountered. Their bodies were composed of living crystal that could reshape itself at will, allowing them to adapt to different environments and situations. They possessed a hive-mind intelligence that made them coordinated and efficient in battle, but it also made them predictable to someone who understood their patterns. Marcus had studied them extensively during his 5 years on Aurora 7. The station's primary mission had been to analyze captured Zephyrian technology, searching for weaknesses that could give humanity an edge in the ongoing conflict. He knew their tactics, their technology, and most importantly, their blind spots. The first scout ship would arrive in 4 hours. Marcus had that long to prepare for what would likely be his final battle. He began with a thorough survey of the station's remaining resources. The fusion reactor was stable but running at reduced capacity. Life support was functional in approximately 60% of the station. Most weapon systems were destroyed, but the automated defense grid still had limited functionality in some sections. In the research labs, Marcus found treasures that the evacuation teams had been forced to abandon. Experimental plasma charges, prototype energy shields, and most importantly, several intact samples of Zephyrian technology that could be reverse engineered. His mind raced with possibilities as he gathered everything that could be used as a weapon or tool. The station's manufacturing bay became his workshop. Marcus had trained as a military engineer before specializing in communications, and those skills served him well now. He began constructing improvised explosive devices from the plasma charges, rigging them to motion sensors and timer circuits. Each device was carefully placed in strategic locations throughout the station. The Zephyrians' hive mind gave them coordination, but it also made them follow predictable patterns. They would enter through the main docking bay, secure the central command areas first, then spread out to claim the research data. Marcus planned his defenses accordingly. He rerouted power from non-essential systems to boost the defensive grid in key corridors. Emergency bulkheads were rigged to seal at his command, allowing him to compartmentalize sections of the station. The life support system was modified to create zones of extreme temperature or atmospheric pressure that would be deadly to the crystalline aliens. As he worked, Marcus found himself thinking about his sister Sarah back on Earth. She was a teacher, devoted to showing children that they could overcome any obstacle with creativity and determination. He wondered what she would think of her brother now, alone against impossible odds, refusing to surrender. The first Zephyrian scout ship docked 3 hours and 57 minutes after Marcus had begun his preparations. He watched through the security monitors as Styx alien warriors emerged from their vessel. They moved with fluid grace, their crystalline bodies shifting and adapting as they explored the station's corridors. The Zephyrians communicated through harmonic resonances that their crystal bodies could produce and detect. Marcus had rigged the station's sound system to emit interference patterns that would disrupt their communication, forcing them to rely on visual signals and making coordination more difficult. The first trap triggered when the lead Zephyrian rounded a corner in Section C. The explosive device Marcus had placed there detonated with devastating effect, the plasma charge turning the corridor into a temporary inferno. The alien's crystalline body couldn't adapt quickly enough to the extreme heat, and it shattered like glass under thermal shock. The remaining 5 aliens immediately went into defensive formation, but Marcus was already triggering his next surprise. The atmospheric controls in their section activated, dropping the temperature to near absolute zero, while simultaneously increasing air pressure. 2 more Zephyrians couldn't complete their adaptive transformations in time and were destroyed. The surviving 3 aliens retreated toward their ship, but Marcus had anticipated this. Emergency bulkheads sealed their escape route, while automated defense turrets emerged from hidden panels. The battle was brief but decisive. As the last Zephyrian scout fell, Marcus allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. He had proven that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't advanced technology or superior numbers. It was the ability to think creatively, to adapt and overcome regardless of the odds. But this was only the beginning. The scout ship's failure to report back would alert the main Zephyrian fleet. They would send a full invasion force, and Marcus knew he couldn't defeat hundreds of enemies with the same tactics that had worked against 6. He needed a new plan, something that would turn the station itself into a weapon. As he studied the research data and experimental technologies at his disposal, an idea began to form. It was dangerous, possibly suicidal, but it might be humanity's only hope of preventing the Zephyrians from claiming Aurora 7's secrets. Marcus Chen had been abandoned by his own kind, left to die alone in the cold vacuum of space. But he was human, and humans didn't surrender. They fought back with everything they had, turning weakness into strength and defeat into victory. The real battle was about to begin. 1 against the swarm. The main Zephyrian invasion fleet arrived 18 hours after the scout ships went silent. Marcus watched through the external sensors as 12 warships emerged from hyperspace, their crystalline hulls catching and refracting the light of distant stars. Each ship was a masterpiece of alien engineering, capable of carrying hundreds of warriors. Marcus had spent those 18 hours turning research station Aurora 7 into the most dangerous place in the galaxy. Every corridor was a potential trap, every room a carefully orchestrated kill zone. But he knew conventional tactics wouldn't be enough against such overwhelming numbers. He needed something the Zephyrians would never expect. The experimental research bay held the key to his plan. Among the abandoned projects was the quantum resonance amplifier, a device originally designed to study the harmonic frequencies that Zephyrian crystal bodies used for communication. Dr. Elena Vasquez had been working on weaponizing the technology before the evacuation, theorizing that the right frequency could disrupt the aliens' cellular structure. The device was incomplete and untested, but Marcus had no choice. He spent precious hours connecting it to the station's main power grid and rigging a control system he could operate remotely. If his calculations were correct, the amplifier could turn the Zephyrians' greatest strength against them. The alien landing ships touched down on Aurora 7's docking bays like metallic predators claiming their territory. Marcus counted over 300 Zephyrian warriors disembarking from the vessels, their bodies shifting and adapting to the station's environment. Leading them was a massive specimen nearly twice the size of the others, its crystalline form decorated with intricate patterns that marked it as a supreme commander. The invasion began with methodical precision. Zephyrian warriors spread throughout the station in coordinated groups, following predictable patterns that their hive mind dictated. They secured the docking bays first, then moved toward the central command areas, where they expected to find the most valuable research data. Marcus triggered his first wave of defenses when the aliens reached the main corridor junction. Shaped charges he had constructed from plasma conduits detonated in sequence, creating a chain reaction of explosions that brought down an entire section of the station's superstructure. Dozens of Zephyrians were crushed or torn apart by the blast, but many more simply adapted their forms to navigate the debris. The aliens' ability to reshape their bodies made them incredibly difficult to kill through conventional means. Marcus had studied their weaknesses extensively, learning that rapid temperature changes could disrupt their cellular cohesion and that certain frequencies could interfere with their control systems. But applying this knowledge against hundreds of enemies required perfect timing and flawless execution. As the Zephyrians advanced deeper into the station, Marcus began his guerrilla campaign. He moved through maintenance shafts and service corridors, always staying one step ahead of the invaders. Environmental controls became weapons as he flooded sections with superheated plasma or flash-froze entire chambers. Emergency bulkheads trapped groups of aliens in compartments that became their tombs. The Zephyrian commander grew frustrated with the resistance. Marcus could hear the harmonic resonances growing more agitated as the aliens' communication network struggled to coordinate their response to threats that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The hive mind that gave them such coordination in open battle became a liability in the twisted maze that Aurora 7 had become. Marcus's greatest advantage was his unpredictability. Where the Zephyrians followed logical patterns and established protocols, he improvised and adapted moment by moment. When they expected him to retreat, he attacked. When they tried to corner him, he vanished through passages they didn't know existed. Every human innovation on the station became a weapon in his hands. The manufacturing bay's automated systems were reprogrammed to create anti-personnel mines from spare components. The gravity generators in the hydroponics section were overloaded to create crushing zones that could flatten Zephyrian crystal bodies. Even the station's waste disposal system became a delivery method for toxic gases that could poison the aliens' respiratory adaptations. But Marcus knew he was fighting a losing battle. For every Zephyrian he eliminated, 2 more took its place. His traps and ambushes were thinning their numbers, but not quickly enough. The aliens were learning his tactics, adapting their approach to counter his strategies. The breakthrough came when Marcus accessed the personal research notes of Dr. Sarah Kim, the station's chief cynobiologist. Hidden in her encrypted files was a discovery that hadn't made it into the official reports. The Zephyrians' hive mind communication operated on multiple harmonic frequencies simultaneously, but there was a master frequency that coordinated all the others. Disrupt that single frequency, and the entire communication network would collapse. Marcus raced back to the experimental research bay where the quantum resonance amplifier waited. The Zephyrian commander had anticipated this move, sending a full strike team to secure the area. Marcus arrived to find 30 alien warriors surrounding the device, their crystalline forms creating the defensive perimeter. The final confrontation was unlike anything Marcus had imagined. The Zephyrian commander emerged from the ranks of its soldiers, its massive form towering over the human. It spoke in harmonics that the station's translation system rendered as cold, mechanical words. "You fight well for such a primitive species," the commander said. "Your resistance has been educational, but you cannot prevent the inevitable. Your technology will serve the Empire's expansion." Marcus smiled grimly as he activated his final trap. "You know what your problem is. You think like a hive. All connected, all coordinated, all predictable. But humans? We're chaotic. We're individuals. And that makes us dangerous." The quantum resonance amplifier, activated with a sound like breaking crystal. The master frequency that Dr. Kim had identified pulsed through the station's communication array, amplified to devastating levels. Every Zephyrian on Aurora 7 suddenly found their hive mind connection severed. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Zephyrians who had fought as a coordinated unit suddenly became confused individuals. Their crystalline bodies began to lose cohesion as the harmonic frequencies that maintained their cellular structure fell out of sync. Some aliens managed to retreat to their ships before the disruption could kill them, but most were not so fortunate. The commander made one final attempt to reach Marcus, its massive form beginning to crack and splinter as the resonance amplifier continued its work. But Marcus had prepared for this possibility. A carefully placed explosive charge brought down the laboratory ceiling, crushing the alien leader beneath tons of debris. As the surviving Zephyrians fled in their damaged ships, Marcus collapsed against the remains of the amplifier. The device had overloaded during operation, its circuits fused beyond repair. He was alone again, but this time the silence felt different. This time it felt like victory. 3 days later, the UEH Defiance arrived at Aurora 7 in response to Marcus's emergency beacon. Captain Rodriguez found him in the command center, still monitoring the sensor arrays for any sign of returning Zephyrian forces. "Specialist Chen," the captain said, her voice filled with amazement as she surveyed the destruction around them. "Command wrote you off as KIA. How did you survive? How did you drive off an entire invasion fleet?" Marcus turned from the monitors, his face bearing the exhaustion of someone who had stared death in the face and refused to blink. "I'm human, Captain. We don't give up. We don't surrender. And when someone leaves us behind, we make them regret it." The rescue team found evidence of over 200 Zephyrian casualties throughout the station. One man, abandoned and alone, had defeated a force that should have overwhelmed him 100 times over. The story would spread throughout human space, becoming a legend that inspired countless others. Marcus Chen had proven something that every human knew in their hearts, but rarely had the chance to demonstrate. When pushed to the absolute limit, when faced with impossible odds and certain death, humanity didn't just survive. They fought back. They adapted. They won. The Zephyrians would think twice before underestimating human determination again. And across the galaxy, abandoned outposts and forgotten stations would stand a little taller, knowing that sometimes one person can make all the difference. Sometimes being human is enough.